Republicans who will not be voting for Trump this time around, what was the breaking point for you? Comparing his coronavirus briefing ratings to The Bachelor. Was that the one where he lost his shit at a reporter asking a softball question of what do you say to Americans that are scared? He went on a rant about a terrible reporter he was for asking that and how good his ratings were for these speeches. I talked about this to one of my Trump-loving coworkers and she said, well, it was a really stupid question, and when I mentioned he could have very easily chose to forego his own ego and unify the country a little bit by giving some Americans thrive through adversity bullshit for the media, she just stared at me blankly like I was the idiot. I truly don't understand how these people's minds work. Not very well. That's how. When he posted a tweet about not going to be a bad president that would go golfing for a month, but that's what he did. Pretty sure he has golfed more than any president in the past. And he chose to golf in Florida, which burned through all of the Secret Service budget almost immediately. He actually often stays at his own hotels in Florida, funneling the Secret Service budget into his own pocket. I went to college with a woman who says but he donates his salary. $400,000 does not equal millions and millions and millions of taxpayers' dollars. Not only that, but he's hardly the first president to do so. Obama donated his salary, more than that, in fact, to charity, quietly and with no fanfare. Herbert Hoover donated almost all of it, and even used some of it to boost the salary of his staff. JFK donated his presidential salary and his congressional and senatorial salaries. George Washington initially refused his $25,000 salary, but Congress advised him that it would set a bad precedent, pardon the pun, for a president to refuse a salary. So, he accepted it to use for expenses. According to this website, that $25,000 would be worth $728,000 today. The way he talks to world leaders is an embarrassment to our whole country. Some people are just too dense to see it. I mean, famously, the European leaders were mocking him behind his back. The UN laughed in his face. That's one thing I'll never understand about some Trump supporters. One of the reasons they choose to elect him is because they genuinely believe Trump is a strong man and projects American strength internationally. They also believe Obama was weak and the world made fun of him. The reality of a Trump presidency is this. The UN laughed in his face. World leaders talked about him behind his back like girls gossiping at work and laughing. And for the most part, he sat alone with no one wanting to do business with him during, I believe, meetings with the G7. After all that? Now Trumpsters say perception is irrelevant. As an Aussie that lived in the US and attended college in the US, this is spot on from our view. However, Trump is considered a joke here even before the election. I honestly believe this is a serious misunderstanding of how he was perceived internationally prior to the election, not just after. He was a joke here too. Turns out the joke was on us though. Nobody ever went broke underestimating the intelligence of the American public. I don't know if the rally took place before or after he was elected, but I didn't see it until after. It was the one where he talked about how he hates windmills, and I believe he said he knows more about wind than anybody. Then did a bit about not being able to watch TV because it's not a windy day. That was when I became embarrassed about my vote and started to regret it. It only got worse after that. Those things was hilarious up until you realized that someone that said that could be one of the world's most powerful people. Yay. It's something you would expect a developing nation's dictator to say. On an episode of South Park. I unfortunately fall into the camp of people who voted for him because I hated Clinton. It's not really a situation of where I realized when I wouldn't vote for him again, it's more like when I realized I ducked up. I can't think of a specific moment, but I think it was the realization that he wasn't just saying things and enacting policies that were opposed to previous Democrat ideas and policies, he was just saying whatever crazy shit came to mind. He is also a horrid racist and bigot, and honestly not mentally healthy. When he tweeted about a fake Russian propaganda bullshit article about how the old man that got pushed over by the cops and in the hospital for a week was a spy. Can't even believe how stupid Trump is, can't believe that people still support him. When I realized his words had no meaning. You literally can't trust anything he says. It could be blatant lies and he wouldn't care at all. It's dangerous. I was on the executive board of my college's Republican Party organization. It's been a long couple of years. My family and some friends though will still try to justify what he says. Hess just trolling the liberals, Hess getting back at the fake news. Edit, I commented this further down, I added it up here for more context on my post. The last presidential election was the first time I could vote. I've grown up in a red state. My family watches Fox News. I went to a really conservative church. It took a couple years of college to snap me out of it. I'm pretty moderate now. It's a microcosm of thinking and hate where you have to keep making excuses and justifying his actions to continue to be sane. That's where the alternative news networks come into play. They make people think they're the victims. That the liberals and George Soros are trying to take our guns and disrespect our flag. All protesters are rioters. Etc. That's such a messed up thing. One of the world's most powerful men trolling. And that's a good thing? Remember how he was just being sarcastic when he suggested that doctors should look into injecting disinfectant into people at a press conference about a virus which had killed over 60,000 Americans. At that time, the people who defended his sarcasm were the same ones who had fits when Obama wore a tan suit to a press conference about the situation in Ukraine with Russia in which no Americans had been harmed, claiming that his choice to wear a casual suit color meant that he didn't take the situation or presidency seriously. It's mind-boggling. My breaking point was the tweets to Michigan and Virginia stating they were coming for their guns during the primaries, or something similar. You simply shouldn't purposefully turn your own citizens against each other. That really scared me. Meanwhile, he actually said take the guns first, go through due process second, referring to confiscating guns from people who are suspected of being potential criminals but have not committed any crime. What an insane violation of rights, and these Second Amendment people still drool over him like he's some great champion. Barack Obama was certainly not a fan of the Second Amendment, but he never considered anything so insane. The exact thing that gun owners feared, baselessly, cops coming to their doors demanding their guns, was actually advocated by Donald Trump on video. Of course, his supporters will claim that he misspoke or that he was joking. Edit, here's the source. He says on video that he supports taking guns from someone suspected of having violent tendencies. No conviction, no arrest, no court trial. The government could take guns from anyone they don't like with a policy like that. WashingtonPost.com. Broadly gestures at everything. I used to be a Republican up until a few months after the last election. The breaking point for me was how hateful Trump supporters became. They would take the bold things he would say and use them to insult anyone who didn't agree with Trump or his ways. I just could not stand to be associated with so much hate. That and Trump is ducking insane. But his supporters just kind of brush that stuff under the rug because, well, they're Republicans so they have to accept him. I don't believe it should be that way. If someone isn't doing the right thing, you shouldn't just be okay with it because that's your political belief. But such is the way a lot of things are in America. I've chosen to just not associate with a political party anymore. Edit, I just want to state that I was aware of the hatred leading up to the 2016 elections. One of the reasons I am no longer Republican is because I realized the error in my decision. I'm sorry I did not make the decision I did until after the election. My only excuse is prior ignorance and close-mindedness. And yes, I will be voting. My dad has repeatedly said that the thing that upsets him, he's a lifelong Republican, the most is not Trump, it's that the Republican Party didn't stand up to him. As he says, they had an opportunity to say, this is what we believe in, this is what is important to us, and we're going to stand by that, even against someone who purports to be one of us. And instead so many of them just jumped on board. That's what was so appalling to me in the 2016 election. I didn't vote for him, but seeing that so many people agreed in what he stood for was a real wake-up call for me. I really thought people had more humanity than that. What stuck with me was an interview someone did with a Trump supporter who said he's not hurting the people he needs to be hurting. That says it all. That's the ideology of his most fervent supporters. That he needs to hurt people. Makes me think of the 5 bumper stickers and hats I saw visiting Florida that said Trump 2020 make liberals cry again, like how goddamn immature and mean-spirited can you be about a presidential election? The fact he appointed an oil exec to be the head of the EPA so it could be dismantled, and that he lies constantly. I left the GOP. Well, I just changed my affiliation 2 weeks ago, but had been a Republican since I first registered 25 years ago. When he had so many people removed from their jobs in his team because they came out and said something he didn't agree with. No one expects the president to know everything, you are supposed to find the best people to get you the information needed.